I'm Gil Cedillo. This is the Los Angeles Housing and Community Investment Department hearing. We are holding a second as we prepare the logistics for the translation. Is that ready yet? Not yet ready yet. So we want to make sure that everybody can hear what's going on and participate, and that requires us to be responsive to various languages. Personas que necesitan traducir la reunión. ¿Todos tienen? Sí, sí, sí. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, as I said, this is the Los Angeles Housing and Community Investment Department meeting for today, February 17th, 2016. We are starting at about 1:25. I'm joined by my colleagues, Senator Price and Councilmember Harris Dawson. So, first of all, let's see if we can do this. So I want to congratulate everybody. We now have a retrofit program that was agreed upon by all interested parties, tenants and landlords. And I think that's an incredible accomplishment. So I'm going to ask you, please don't interrupt this meeting. I really want you to participate, but if you're going to make noises and play games, I'm going to ask that you be removed, okay? I don't want to have a repeat of this morning. And that's your choice. So please don't interrupt with your sounds and noises, etc. Thank you. So as I was saying, we had an incredible, what I think is a victory for all sides. Everybody was involved. Everybody participated. We came to an agreement in which I think, in my experience working with unions, is once you come to an agreement, you have to embrace that. And that sets the new foundation for you to move forward. I think it works better when people acknowledge that, embrace those agreements as victories that I consider them to be, and then it lays the foundation for us to go forward. And I think that's why we're here today. As we move forward to create this registry, we are building upon 1979. We're building on the rent stabilization ordinance that was created in 1979 for the city of Los Angeles. It was unique for most in the state, and in some respects it was a little more thoughtful than the rest of the state, because when the law changed with Costa-Hawkins, ours was not impacted. So ours was initially designed in a way, balanced in a way that it was not impacted by the changes of Costa-Hawkins. And those were basically constitutional challenges to the rent control throughout the entire state and that's where we ended up. What we're trying to do today, I should not be that hard. I don't think there's a lot of brain damage on this. I don't think it's that difficult. It's simply to create this registry. And in my sense, when everybody knows what the rules are, when it's clear, when there's transparency, then no one gets disadvantaged. And my experience is that landlords will not be disadvantaged. Those who comply, play by the rules, do everything as they're supposed to, won't be disadvantaged by those who don't play by the rules, who don't do as they're required to do. And so this will be a data-driven process. We are not exact. We have some options that we'll discuss today. But as I said, this is something that our neighbors in Santa Monica and West Hollywood already do. And I think coming off this recent agreement that we made on the retrofit, we should build upon it so that we can move forward with a continuing to better serve all the stakeholders in the city of Los Angeles, landlords and tenants. My colleagues, I offer you an opportunity to opine on this.
I'm anxious to get the report and to hear comments. This is something I think is very important that impacts everyone, and we want to have a balanced approach, I think, as we've attempted to do in other measures. And so I'm anxious to begin the discussion.
I'm also eager to hear and be a part of the discussion, and thank the chair and the members for bringing this item forward, and also everybody who's here today. Looking forward to hearing from you. This is one of those things that can seem like a small thing, but can be a very, very big thing. Certainly, as a person who's been both a renter and a landlord, I can appreciate the benefits and the challenges with such a system. And so I'm eager to see what we can eke out, given the wonderful and beautiful and engaged people we have here in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you. With that, let's have the Housing Department come to the table and explain the proposed rent registry program. Tell us what other cities are doing and how we should go forward.
Mr. Chair, if I may read the item into the record.
Please. I'm sorry.
The Los Angeles Housing and Community Investment Department report relative to establishing a rent stabilization ordinance rent registry program.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Anna Ortega. I'm the Director of Rent Stabilization with the Los Angeles Housing Department. Our department was tasked to report on the feasibility of expanding the yearly registration of properties subject to the RSO to include the actual rents for RSO rental units, as is done in most other rent-controlled jurisdictions. Many people, in fact, are surprised when they learn that Los Angeles does not currently do this. The idea was first raised when we reviewed the findings of the 2009 rental housing study, an economic study of the RSO. And the study found some indication that there were illegal rent increases in about 27% of rental units in LA RSO units. Currently, the LA system operates on sort of an honor system where we investigate claims of illegal rent increases on a complaint basis only. Establishment of a rent registry would allow the city to obtain accurate and reliable data on the actual rents in RSO units. It would allow the city to better monitor rent increases and discourage illegal rent increases, providing some protections to tenants against unwarranted rent increases. As discussed in our report, this is important in Los Angeles, which is the metropolitan city with the highest concentration of rent-burdened tenants in the country, with 58% of tenants paying rents that are unaffordable, which is more than 30% of their income, and 33% severely rent burdened, which means they pay more than 50% of their income in rent. The city's housing affordability crisis, the severe rent burden of Los Angeles tenants, the data in our report on the differential between RSO and non-RSO units, the historically low vacancy rate that we're experiencing right now, the trend to gentrification in certain areas of the city, and the pressure of eviction of low-income tenants. All of these things taken together point to a need to safeguard the city's rent-stabilized housing stock and enforce the rent increase provisions of the RSO. A rent registry for RSO units would be an important tool to protect tenants from excessive rent increases. We also believe that a rent registry could greatly assist in our outreach efforts, both for landlords and tenants, and could in fact provide valuable information for landlords, especially buyers of rental properties. We are aware, of course, that there are various existing data sources, and we have used some of these sources in our report. However, all of these sources have shortcomings and provide only aggregate data. One of the biggest shortcomings is that the data is provided generally for large, professionally managed properties of 16 units or more. However, as you may be aware, 2/3 of the LA RSO housing stock are properties with 4 units or less. So the data doesn't cover 2/3 of our RSO housing stock. These sources are ineffectual for any actual enforcement of the legal RSO rents at a specific property. A rent registry would provide a data source specific to the RSO inventory, which would be unmatched by any private vendor or public data source. With me today is Marcella DeShirley. She assisted in the writing of this report and did a lot of the research about other rent jurisdictions. She is prepared to describe for you what we're offering as options A, B, and C for your consideration.
Okay.
Hello, Marcella DeShirley,
Hello.
Housing Community Investment Department. As Anna mentioned in this report, we do lay out 3 options for your consideration. Option A would provide that that rental amount information is provided on an annual basis. Option B would also require rent information provided on an annual basis as well upon the re-rental of a rental unit. And then option C would only provide a one-time registration of the rents, and then thereafter it would only be upon re-rental of a rental unit.
We've also provided some preliminary data on the implementation, mainly for comparison purposes, so that you could look at the differences between the various options. In the end, the implementation costs are roughly similar for all 3 options, but would drop in future years under option C. While funding for a rent registry would involve a fee increase in the annual RSO fee, it's important to remember that these fees are split 50-50 between landlords and tenants, and the RSO fee, the annual RSO fee for any of these options would still be under $30 per year, as compared to other cities which currently administer similar rent registry programs, with fees of $213 in Berkeley, for example, $174 in Santa Monica, and $120 in West Hollywood. Ours right now is $24.51. So today we're asking for direction from the committee and the council on setting the policy, and then we can report back with a more detailed report on the financing of a rent registry. Adoption of a rent registry system in Los Angeles would represent a major shift in the enforcement of the RSO, a task which should not be underestimated, and it is important that adequate resources be allocated to build a system that is up to the task of accurately capturing the data for the city's more than 600,000 RSO rental units. And I am available to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Colleagues?
I'll defer to the senior statesman.
Thank you, Senior Statesman. I did have questions here. Hold on a second. So currently, there is not a mandatory, or there's no requirement to provide this information at all. Is that correct?
No, currently our system is that landlords annually register their units, and what they register is the number of units that they're renting, but not actual rents for any of the units, or even any identifiers. We don't know if they're A, B, and C, 1, 2, 3. They just register the number of rental units subject to the RSO.
And has there been general wide compliance with that, or you don't know?
No,
That's a problem.
No, we expect that 99% or more of RSO units do register their rental units as required. It's illegal to rent a rental unit in Los Angeles unless it's registered.
I see. And you reference here an additional ministerial step in terms of the option A. What's that additional step you're...
Right. So right now where they register the number of rental units and certain information about their rent property, we would ask them to, at the same time, register the rent levels for each rental unit, subject to the RSO. So we're building on the existing system which annually requires registration of the RSO units.
Okay, well, I'd like to hear some comments from others.
So I just
See
have
how
a
that's
question
gonna
about
negatively
distinctions
impact.
between A and B in particular. So it looks like B calls for annually re-upping on how much the rent is on each unit. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, both A and B require annual registration of the rents at the same time that they register their units and pay their annual fee.
Got it.
In B, though, in addition to that, once a year, whenever the unit turns over and it gets decontrolled and there's a new rent, they would also need to notify the department of the new rent for a new tenant.
So the advantage of that is that we'd know a few months sooner that it was decontrolled and the rent went up and we're reset now.
Yes, it would be more accurate, whereas the other way, we'd capture that once a year.
And in other cities, do you know, once this information is compiled, or even for what we have now, this becomes public information, I presume, and so this is available to everyone from law enforcement to private interests that might want to make an app that tells you how much rent should be where you're standing?
Right. It would be subject to public records requests. In other cities, what they have is you put in an address, and it will tell you what the maximum legal rent is for that unit. So we would be building some sort of system to provide that information with protections for privacy for the tenants.
So that's theoretically that's a service the city could provide, or will we count on the private sector to provide that?
No,
service?
we would do that.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
city of
in our
Santa
system.
Monica has something like that right now, where you could go on their website and type in an address in the unit, and it'll tell you what the maximum adjusted rent is for that particular unit.
Are there any private entities that do that now? I mean, is that
Not for a particular
Available.
unit. The private entities right now provide aggregate data for certain parts of the city or for certain criteria, but they don't have it for every unit subject to the RSO or for a particular unit.
And this would not provide information on any individual. It wouldn't provide any personal information who's living in those units.
No, we would
it?
not.
Just
We would work carefully with the city attorney on privacy concerns. We would not be revealing tenants' names at all.
So tell us about the work you've been doing with my staff to reduce the cost of this program. I appreciate it.
So the costs that we provided were preliminary costs, and mainly we wanted to show the difference between the options, so what kind of difference it makes. And we would expect to come back with a full report and possibly a fee study. But in our report, the options for option A was about 1.8 million. For option B, it was about 2 million per year. For option C, it's the same, about 1.8 in the first couple of years, we think, but would fall after that in future years. The pass-through costs range from $247 per year to $368 per year. Again, remember, this is split 50-50 between landlords and tenants. So let's say under option A, which was our recommendation, the amount for the tenants would be $1.60 per unit per year, and the same thing for the landlords. We try to be thorough in our estimates, and that included, in this preliminary report, approximately 11 positions, but that included 2 as-needed positions. These as-needed positions aren't permanent full-time positions. They would be brought in only during the high season, which is, for us, it's January, February, while property owners must register their units. So they were counted there. I think it was a little misleading to count them as as full-time positions. So there's 2 there that are part of the 11. There's also a programmer analyst position, which could be, that work needs to be done, but could be done on a contract basis. So it's possible when we report back on the fiscal costs that it could be somewhat lower than what was in our transmittal. It doesn't really move it very much, maybe about 50 cents per unit per year.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So, excuse my ignorance on this. So my understanding is that this is $3.21 a year per
Yeah.
unit,
Yes.
and you just put forward dividing that in 2.
Because the way the Los Angeles RSO system works, it's paid by the annual registration fee. So what we've been talking about, the annual registration that happens now is to register the properties, enable landlords to legally collect rent in the city of Los Angeles,
Sure.
and it pays for our programs.
Right.
So right now, amount is $24.51. It's split 50-50 between landlords and tenants. So when we increase these
So you
programs,
continue that.
it would be added to that.
So let's just say, and I don't want to go too deep off into this because I don't want to get us off topic, but let's just say, because I think for $5 a unit a year would be about 47 cents a month. I just did it, so that's,
Okay,
that's accurate.
I'll take your word for it.
That part's accurate. Here's the question.
Get a calculator.
So say we asked people who have the privilege of owning buildings to pay 50 cents extra a month. I'm just curious about what we could get for $5 versus, I mean, this seems like the very definition of nickel and diming.
Right. So these costs that are here, I think, are modest for. This is a title, it would be a title change in the LARSO. So yes, of course, the more resources we have, the more programs we can have, the more enforcement we can have. The rent fee it's set very carefully to the penny. If you notice, it's $24.51. The CAO and policymakers didn't let us make that $25 or $24. We do a fee analysis and we estimate exactly what we forecast is going to be needed because this is funded by landlords and tenants who pay for these programs.
So I guess my question is, I guess the part about this that's flexible or elastic is how much enforcement you will have or won't have, if I'm hearing you correctly. And I guess I'm trying to get an idea for you how you all decide where to land on that question.
So depending on the policy direction we get, we design the programs that the council asks us for, and in this case, we provided a range of options about how thorough the city wants to be, and also what it means, what is the impact on the landlords and the tenants.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's hear some public comment. Let's start with Wayne from CD8. Tricia McAllister. And Malcolm Harris.
Okay. So I hear we're going to be forcing registration of these properties. So, they're talking about forcing these property owners to register. Now, what if they don't? So if they don't register or they're not registered, what's the penalty? So the simple way to go is you give everybody 2 years to register, but you should put a notice in their property tax bill for the 2 years to tell them that they need to register if they have a certificate of occupancy on or after 1978, and they have more than one rental unit per parcel. Because it's the amount of rentals. It has to be 2 or more per parcel. So if you have 2 houses on one parcel, it's rent controlled if the certificate of occupancy is after 1/178. If you have 2 parcels and one is in each parcel, each house is not rent controlled. So you should put that on the property tax bill in big black bold letters that they need to register and then after the 2 years, then make it a $1,000 fine, and they'll get everybody's attention. See, that's the way it is. But the main thing, and you look on the comments on this item in the item packet, there's a PDF showing what happens when building and safety comes out and terrorizes homeowners, because their orders to comply, as you can see, are a form of economic terrorism. So you have a problem with your building and safety department. I just went through this. And they are out of control. Absolutely, positively fucking out of control, the building and safety department. You got to get that done first. So I would put this item on hold until you fully get the building and safety department under
Thank
control.
you. Patricia McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with the last speaker. We've had illegal aliens come into City Hall, the meetings, complaining about landlords. They go out and they write reports on landlords. These people don't speak a word of English. Now, I didn't hear this lady say anything about finding out why illegal aliens are living in these affordable units. You're talking about rent rates and vacancy rates, and are we re-renting out and whatnot? Who are the people renting these items? Now, I had 2 minutes. Somebody cut me down to 1 when I mentioned illegal aliens. Now, I don't know what happened to my minute, but I want it back. And anyway, that's what we need to be concerned with. We have 40,000 homeless in Los Angeles. 30,000 are black. They're homeless because you have illegal aliens. And Mr. Cedillo, I don't think you should be in charge of this committee here, because you are Latino or Hispanic, and most of the affordable units are in your ward. And I don't like that. And that last speaker, a lot of these people who are on these committees and in charge of, I had 2 minutes, sir. What happened to my 2 minutes? Now, I can report you for that. You're not supposed to do that under the Brown Act. He had 2 minutes. I'm supposed to get 2 minutes.
Rebecca Sen, Malcolm Harris,
You're a legal alien too, probably.
and Manaret Malloy.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure we call out the very open and grotesque hate speech
Yes.
that we're witnessing.
Hate speech.
Should events occur later, we want there to be a record of what happened here today.
It's your people on the street.
You're out of order. You're out of order. You are out of order. I'm giving you your second notice there. I've got Malcolm Harris, sir, and Rebecca Sen.
Yes.
Please proceed.
Okay. So my name is Malcolm Harris.
District.
CD8, CD9, right. I'm with South Los Angeles, but I live at Western and Gage. I think the rent issues and the housing issues have been issues for years. This is nothing new, particularly in South Los Angeles. The amount of rents that are out of control and the amount of housing and homelessness issues that are happening in our community have been issues for years. There's a need to come and create some sort of process to be able to see how do we get in front of this and how do we address these issues and continue to impact all of our communities. Oh, and particularly in CD9, which I have an interest in. I just wanted to make sure that we're all clear of that. And that we want to make sure that we believe that the rent registry is one of the best ways to be able to address these issues, and we believe that this is a way to support addressing the deep homelessness issue in our community.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Rabia Sen, and I'm with Esperanza Community Housing Corporation. We work with the communities of South Central Los Angeles who daily live on the edge of housing, health, economic, and environmental justice issues, mostly low-income communities of color who daily face the threat of displacement and homelessness. And we know, as well as I'm sure you do, which is why this is here before you today, that Los Angeles is the most unaffordable city for renters. And so what we hope you will do is support what's here before you today, especially the rent registry. With the dearth of affordable housing in the city, we need to find thoughtful, intentional ways to address this in a way that's going to not just increase affordable housing, but also preserve what we currently have. The rent registry is a basic tool, and it's a common sense solution to do this. It will help us gather the data to understand what is going on with this crisis and what we need to do, and to find those solutions together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good.
Appreciate being here. I support the rent registry. I think that the city is entirely deficient in enforcing its own laws that are currently on the books that are supposed to protect affordable housing and rent-stabilized housing. It's epidemic in Venice. There's serial commercial operators. There are multiple complaints to HCIDLA about illegal change of use. They go unanswered. The tenants are gone. They're just gone, and it's unconscionable. It's no wonder we have an epidemic in homelessness. It's no wonder we have an epidemic in scofflaw landlords. It's out of control. There's no enforcement. The laws are on the books. Yeah, sure, there's loopholes, but there's football fields of vagrancy on the part of enforcement. I support the idea of mandatory registration of all buyouts, which is the manipulation that people are using to evict tenants out of rent-stabilized housing.
Okay, thank you. Steve Luffman, Candace Graham, and Roberta Morris. Steve Luffman, Candace Graham, and Roberta Morris. No, I understand. That's okay. Got it? Got it? It's okay.
Hello. Hi, my name is Stephen Luftman. I live at 124 North Florey Street. I am a board member of Mid-City West, the city-certified neighborhood council for our area. I'm also a renter, and I support the formation of a rent registry board. I know in my own building, after 17 years, a fellow tenant who moved in with the exact same rent, we compared rents 17 years later, and he was paying about $70 more than I was. It seemed to be that through the years, the landlords have passed through, they added fees on his and not on mine. So I think this would help stop things like that happening.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Candace?
Oh, it's okay, sweetie. Hello, hi, my name is Candace Graham. I'm here in front of you guys because the International Convent of Civil Rights of the United Nations and the Privacy Acts of the United States of Congress prohibit exactly what you guys are trying to do. And knowing that the city of Los Angeles would like to stay in the legal form of this, and let me put it very, very specially, this is a violation. It's a privacy violation. So to enact it, you would be open towards lawsuits in no way or form. Furthermore, it is, we have to protect the tenants. Not only the tenants, but the people and the city of Los Angeles. I don't feel that this is protecting the city. I have too many problems with HACLA, or HACLA, at this particular point in time. I have a declaration here which shows just one of the access violations that they have done over the years. And this is actually what you're opening up to, losing over $20 million in the city of Los Angeles. Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Price. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I'll be back.
Okay. Roberta Morris, please.
I'm speaking on behalf of the Rodney Tenants Drive Association. We were all evicted under the Ellis Act. I'm also working with the tenants union on this issue to ensure that everybody has open access to information. The tenants are not protesting. This is an invasion. This is a privacy. The only people that seem to be raising this are the people who are the landlords who are, and their privacy is to evidently raise rents without, it's often illegally without any consequence. This rent stabilized ordinance with registry is in place in many cities already, and it's essential for the enforcement of rent control and also to prohibit people using things like the Ellis Act to illegally evict and raise people's rents. So we urge you to not only pass this, but make it at least a 1 year period of time. 6 months is just not long enough to actually get this rolling. It's going to need at least a year. So we're asking you to put this in place and also extend it.
Got it.
Thank you.
James Cacavo, I believe it is. Cacavo? Lakita Gilliam, and Bill. What is that? Easy for you to say. Bill Prislucky. Come up, Bill. You're James?
Yes, good afternoon.
How would you like us to pronounce your name?
Cacavo.
Cacavo.
Yep.
Lakita Gilliam, please come up. And Bill Pozalki.
Oh, okay. Bill, I'm Bill Hilby. You didn't call me?
No, I didn't call you Bill. I'm sorry.
All right, sorry. Okay.
You're in here, though, Bill.
All right.
Okay. Bill, how would you like us to pronounce your name? Prislaki? Sure, he says. It says Gil Cedillo. Okay, James, sorry.
Okay, yes, thank you. I'm chairman of an HPOZ here in Los Angeles. I own one building. I'm a landlord, 4-unit building. I've owned the building 20 years, and 20 years ago, when I would put a unit on the market, it would take a month to fill that, as I'd review all the applications. Today, this past year, I put a unit on the market. I get more people in one day than I used to get in a month. They can't find a place to live. And what's happening, and I'm considering leaving. I mean, I'm a veteran. I'm retired from the LA Times and Time Magazine. This one building is my income for retirement, but I'm also still a reservist. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the reserve, so I'm very busy. But the problem I'm having with this ordinance is just more stuff that's being dumped on landlords, and more landlords are leaving Los Angeles. I like to buy in other buildings. I enjoy providing quality housing. I keep tenants sometimes for 5 years or longer. And what I'm trying to make is that you're going to be losing buildings, more landlords are going to be leaving Los Angeles. My mortgage will be paid off in a couple of years, and I may just start, as people move out, I may pull those units off the market and close them.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Lakita?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Lakita Gilliam. I am a business manager of 275 apartment homes in Los Angeles. The issue that we have with this is we're always in compliance, with the registry that is presently. If we were to change and have to register each time a unit changed over, that would be a huge impact on myself and my staff. We offer short-term leasing. We turn apartments every 3 months sometimes, so to have to re-register those would be a big impact on us. In addition to the fact we're always in compliance, we never go over a year before we give the allotted rent increase. And then if there's an increase in the annual registration fee, some of my residents already have a problem paying the $12.25 in the month of June when we collect it. So to add even another $1 or $2 would be very difficult for them to pay as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill.
My name is Bill Prislucky. I'm the Executive Director of Power, People Organized for Westside Renewal. We support a rent registry, specifically Option A. I just want to say a little bit about what we've been experiencing in especially the Venice neighborhood where we do community organizing with tenants. The words that our folks have been using in the community about tenants in areas that are experiencing gentrification has disappeared. We're starting to hear about we're starting to hear folks in the community literally say tenants were disappeared from the neighborhood. Just last night at the neighborhood council, we were hearing a proposal from a landlord who has over 150 units in the neighborhood, who is trying to turn all of them into short-term rental apartments. And a big part of the issue is where did the former tenants go? And the fact is we can't find them and we can't get good data on what happened and when. The neighborhood doesn't know. We don't know what happened to some of our folks. We had one case that was a Mellow Act case where there was a replacement housing requirement to replace an affordable unit, and we were only able to replace it because we literally went out and found the tenants ourselves through knocking on doors and putting in a tremendous amount of work. If we had had this data up front, we could better enforce our land use laws in the coastal zone, so it's especially important for us to have a rent registry
Got it.
and throughout the city.
Kim
Thank you.
Stroud, James Porter, and King Chung. How you doing, Jim?
How you doing, Sadell?
Kim Stroud and King Chung. Yeah, sure. Kim?
I'm Kim Stroud.
Yeah, have a seat. Jim, why don't you go first?
I can go first? Okay. Thank you. My name is James Porter. I'm a member of LA CAM. The LA Housing Department receives over 7,000 tenant initiative complaints per year concerning possible violation of the RSO. Complaints regarding illegal rent increase account for a third of all complaints, making it the second most common form of complaint behind eviction notice. What we need is a rent registration to protect the rights of low-income tenants. We need a rate registration to protect low-income housing. In the long run, this benefits all of us, and that we will be able to make better data-based decisions when planning the future of our city. And we support option 8 also.
Thank you. Mr. Chung.
All right, thank you. Hi, my name is King Chung. I'm a member of the Chinatown Community for Equitable Development, and we work with tenants and workers. And recently, we helped a tenant who live in on Cesar Chavez and Grant. The landlord wanted to raise the rent for $100, so she refused to pay this illegal rent increase, and the landlord wanted to evict her. So we had to go to court to fight that, and we won. But the problem is that there are 4 units in the apartment complex, and we're trying to find out whether the other tenants face similar problems. For various reasons, because we could not contact the other tenants, or they're afraid to speak to us, we're not able to find out. So I think the rent registry would be a good thing to have. It would make everything open, and it would be the best way to protect the tenants. And also, I think it's fair to other landlords that want to follow the law and obey the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kim?
Hello, I'm Kim Stroud, a community member of the Thigh Community Development. And I want to share my experience dealing with finding affordable living in Los Angeles. I want to support the passing of a rent registry that will allow the city to monitor their affordable housing stock a lot closer and work on supplying people like me with affordable homes. We know this motion is being pushed back by landlords, but I and the Renters Day Coalition believe that this is a fundamental tool to address the needs of affordable housing in Los Angeles. So basically, after the meeting, if possible, I'd talk to someone in regard to my current living situation.
Thank you. I have, I think, John Trung and Gabriela Garcia.
Thank you.
Sir, I don't think I called you.
Christian Frère. My name is Christian Frère.
I didn't call you, sir.
What?
I haven't called you yet. You have to wait till I
so
call you.
You did.
No, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Sorry.
And Scott Wright. I got John Trung, Gabriela Garcia, and Scott Wright. Gabby's coming, and Scott Wright is in the other room also. Okay. Hold on. Come on up, Scott. And Gabby's making her way. Why don't you go ahead?
Sure. Hi, my name is John Trong. I'm the research coordinator at SAGE, Strategic Actions for a Just Economy. We're currently looking into the RSO situation in both CD9 and CD8, and specifically in the Southeast LA and South LA community plans. And these are two of the, the areas that have the most number of cost-burdened renters in the city and in the county of LA. And so what we need to know is how can we really support those folks? And you've heard throughout the day how that's possible. Transparency is the easiest way, making sure that we just register those rents and so that we have a clear sense of who needs to pay what. Just having a streamlined system, and the city actually took a step towards doing this by putting the RSO data into ZEMIS, right? That's just one easy step. This would just be another easy step. And so, landlords are coming in here saying, hey, this is too burdensome, but really in reality, if it's so difficult to do, I really question what they have to hide and why we can't move forward and support renters in this city.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Scott Wright. I own a building in Tahunga. One of my big concerns is privacy, and it should be a concern of everybody's, not in landlords and tenants. Governments are notoriously not great about security, and I think that's an issue for all of us concerned. These housing shortages are caused not by evil landlords, it's caused by it not being able to make a profit at it. Okay, and if you can't make a profit, people won't invest here. I know for me, if I'm have to have more burdens on my income, my only resolution is to sell my building to a developer, let him build condos, and invest in Texas. And it's just numbers. And it's not. These people are my customers. I don't have anything against them. They're not my adversaries. They're customers, and I want to make them happy. And but I can't stay in business if I can't make at least a profit. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gabby?
Good afternoon. My name is Gabriela Garcia. I'm a senior community organizer at SAGE, Strategic Action for a Just Economy. I also am a resident of CD1, and definitely people around me and people around the 9th District as well is where a lot of the work that SAGE works around. Folks are rent burdened. Folks are having to take on 2 jobs to pay for their rent, and so that's why it's very important for us to have the affordability to first to track this, right, and ensure that we have a way of holding, landlords and the city accountable as well for that. And I think that so today we're asking, to ensure that we do move forward with this rent registry. Folks in my neighborhood, are being pushed out to bring in higher income, specifically students. So I think as a community, I think we folks are feeling the pressure and the burden, not just the landlord. Thank you.
Thank you. Delia Ayala, Ruth Sarnoff, and Jim Robinson. Delia, Ruth, and Jim.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Delia Ayala, and I'm a REAP outreach coordinator with SAGE and also a community tenant organizer. And I'm here to highly and strongly support the registry. But also I want to speak about the importance and the observations that I make as I'm doing a lot of the site visits through the REAP program, the Rent Escrow Account program with the City of LA. The burden that tenants have as they're trying to not only just pay their rent, but also live in very inhumane conditions. And also want to definitely make a point about the repairs and the conditions of I know we'll be talking about this soon, but the quality repairs that need to be done and how that's actually connected with people's burdens of rent, the prices, and how landlords continue to not be responsible and accountable for that and fall into the REAP program, and even being in it take forever to repair, and the rent continues to go up. So definitely want to make sure that the repairs are also quality. Thank you.
Ruth?
Hi, Ruth Sarnoff. I think in the short run, it's very important that we stop any pressures that make tenants feel like they have to move out as a result of the situation. We're losing to mortgage foreclosures and rental evictions about $30,000 a month, according to reports from August, and I don't think that's changed particularly. In the long run, I think we need to connect the dots and come up with something that helps those landlords that are struggling and would like to get through this kind of housing crisis and keep some housing here, that we combine solar, jobs, and refitting and that whole thing, and that we do that and ask for federal and state aid for some of that.
Thank you, Ruth. Mr. Robinson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jim, and I'm a landlord. According to page 4 of the report, RSO landlords are currently subsidizing their rent-controlled tenants by an average of $635 a month each. That's in the report. That doesn't sound like landlords are cheating. But there is one measure in the report that I think would add some fairness to an inherently unfair process. Near the top of page 3, the report notes that Santa Monica allows for banking of rent increases, while Los Angeles does not. If the Santa Monica property owner chooses not to impose an allowable rent increase in a given year, he retains the right to impose the increase later. That means that he can forgive the rent if he feels the tenant is in dire circumstances, needs help, or the economy is down for whatever reason. LA doesn't allow that, and it would be a big help if it did.
So your suggestion is we have more flexibility in this area.
Basically, if you're setting a rent, let it be a maximum allowable rent, not necessarily the current
required rent. I got it.
Thank you.
Good. Francesca De La Rosa, Steve Diaz, and Yolanda Gonzalez.
Good afternoon. My name is Francesca with Works and the Renters Day Coalition. First, on behalf of the Renters Day partners, I would like to thank HSID for their work with us for more than a year on this issue and for clearly outlining the multiple benefits of a rent registry program and explaining how this valuable data will help us understand our city's RSO housing stock. We support their recommendation for option A. Secondly, I want to remind members of this committee that in every conversation with your staff and your offices, with other council members' offices, with the mayor's legislative team, everyone has said collecting rental data on an annual basis makes sense and can help guide our work in addressing the housing crisis. And finally, all of us, each and every day, are asked in a variety of ways to provide basic information about who we are and what we do. All of us, in some shape or form, are asked to share information about our core work and business as a way to demonstrate that we are acting in good faith and meeting all legal requirements. This should be true for landlords. Rents and what units go for is what the landlord business is all about. We strongly encourage you to move this item forward. Thank you.
I have Yolanda Gonzalez working her way here. Mr. Diaz.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Steve Diaz, and I am with the Los Angeles Community Action Network, LA CAN, and the Renters Day Coalition. We're here in full support of Councilmember Cedillo's motion, and specifically support option A that's being put forth by the department. We feel that a rent registry is a great first step into ensuring that we continue to build balance between landlords and tenants in the RSO. I do want to, however, highlight some issues that I think lead me to be here, and some stats from the 2010 study that was conducted by the Economic Roundtable. For example, in 2010, the last time the RSO was studied, 7,000 complaints were filed with the Los Angeles Housing Department, a third of which were for illegal rent increases. The low-income tenants are more likely to receive rent increases, as it was found in that study, and also, most importantly, tenants were also rent burdened and have continued to be rent burdened since then. So this is a great opportunity to bring balance and thinking about it from the broader systems as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes, good afternoon. Yolanda Gonzalez, and I'm past Vice President of the Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council in Venice. Tenants have no idea where the division of the city is with the county. And I'm going to explain to you what's happening in Boyle Heights. My husband and I own a property. I'm told, if you want to check us, we already do. Because when you are asked for a loan, we have to turn in how much we are charging in rents. Because that's based on what we get a loan. That's public knowledge. And it's public record. What I don't like is that these people that go around checking to see and wanting to ask questions from the renters, who we are as the owners and what ethnic background we are. I am Yolanda Gonzalez Vitkoff, and I regret the fact that they claim that because we are Jewish, they want to know who we are and what we are.
Thank you. Eric Goldshine, Maria Robledo, and Mark Lipman. You're Eric?
Yeah, hi, my name's Eric Goldshine. I just want to say first off, before I lose out on my time, can you please ask the mayor to stop wooing tech companies to Los Angeles? These people are paid stupid amounts of money, and I don't think you can blame landlords for wanting to get the highest price for their rents. And these people, right out of college, are getting $130,000 a year. I mean, how about bringing some companies here that are going to pay some middle-class wages? The other thing is build some affordable housing. Why you seem to be burdening landlords with solving society problems. Make them take in pets because there's a pet overpopulation. Make them take into Section 8 and the shitty RAN program that burdens landlords. My biggest concern is that there's no mechanism for registering what tenants' incomes are. And this tells me, how are you going to know that the tenants who have an affordability problem are the ones that are actually in my units?
Thank you.
Okay? And I don't think that that's fair to me, and I think it's $1.8 million in wasted money.
Maria Robledo.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es María Robledo. Soy inquilina de un edificio de 50 departamentos.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Robledo. I am a tenant at an apartment of 50 units.
Se nos hizo un alza de renta indebido.
There was an increase of rent illegal.
Soy la única que acudió al departamento para ver esta situación.
I'm the only one that came to the department for this situation.
Tuve el privilegio de que se investigó y se me reajustara el cobro.
I had the privilege of being the one that there was an investigation and they adjusted price.
Fui llevada a corte para un desalojo.
I was taken to court for an eviction.
Fui afortunada porque me representó Legal Aid Foundation.
I was happy that Legal Aid Foundation represented me.
Actualmente sigo en el departamento,
I'm
pero
still under the apartment.
Pero existen 49 inquilinos que no han podido reclamar esos costos indebidos.
But there are 49 tenants that has not been able to complain or recover those illegal increases.
Por falta de recibos de pago, de tiempo y por miedo.
Because they don't have the bill, they don't have the time, and they're afraid.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Lipman, Christian Frey, and Mark Wagner.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mark Littman with Power and the West Side Tenants Union. First, I'd like to say that this is simply a question of fairness and transparency, and we fully support option A. On the West Side, we are having real trouble enforcing the Mellow Act. That is because many of our tenants are just disappearing. if this basic information were just made available to us, it would make it easier to be fair to everyone in our community. This is not a question of punishing landlords who are doing the right thing, but as one of the speakers said, it's too difficult to do this because rents are too high. Maybe that is the root of the problem, and I'm all for doing stuff to help make it more affordable for good landlords, but let's make it real for tenants also, because we need support for this. And there are multiple tenants in our community who are getting illegal rent increases who just simply do not know their rights, and this is happening too much. We need to bring some fairness to our community. Thank you.
Sir?
Thank you very much. My name is Christian Frère. Happen to manage affordable housing. One is in your district, by the way. Please, I don't want you to publish the rent for a good reason. In the same building, you have tenant at 35% of the income of the median, and some at 60. If that, do you think I could explain that to the other tenant? If it is published, they may not like it very much, but there is something more. As a manager of affordable housing, what should I do? I'm asking when someone has a financial problem, they cannot pay the rent. Am I going to file a 3-day notice and then eviction? No. The goal of affordable housing is to help them. So I always have a discussion with them, and I try to lower the rent to a level which is feasible for them. Do you think the other tenants would like if they know that? It's impossible. So, plus the other reason, I had a honor to have Miss Ortega, who is had in my building, but sometimes they aren't very poor, but then they are very, very, very well comfortable.
Thank you, Mr. Frere. You raised a very valid point. Thank you. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Chris Grogan and Rachel Torres.
Hi, I'm here to speak on behalf of 7 properties that I manage, and the reality on our part is that year after year we are increased with more burdens. You had mentioned the earthquake retrofit. That was one last year of more burden, and this is more burden. There are other ways to solve the problem rather than creating a $2 million a year pass-through to the owners and the residents. It will not solve the ultimate problem. 85% of the problem is educating the current residents and providing them an avenue, to contradict the illegal rent increases if that is in fact the matter. We would support a lot of additional education rather than creating a $2 million burden. Also, I haven't seen the facts. 0.3% of the complaints were for additional rent increases, illegal rent increases, 2,000. That is not enough to support a $2 million a year registry of the
Thank you.
residents.
Thank you, sir. Chris?
Thank you. So, the California Apartment Association is going to be presenting you with a letter that can speak much more eloquently than I can with respect to some of the reasons I would support not having a registry. But in addition to that, look, illegal rent increases are something I take seriously. All my colleagues here do too. But I would argue that there's already provisions in place that would prevent that. The RSO, it's real. It's got teeth. I object to the way it was characterized earlier that the RSO, or at least provisions with respect to rent control, are on an honor system. I assure you that's not the case. It's got teeth. You will get in trouble if you do illegal rent control. What I don't like about the registration is, as I look at all of its different forms right now, it is, I don't see any of them that are going to do what you're hoping it will achieve. What I see it doing is raising a lot of questions, because there's literally dozens of reasons why a rent is not going to line up from one reason to the next, whether it be apartment turnover, whether it be them getting rid of parking or other elements in their apartment that are beyond whatever the maximum allowable rent would have been for that year. And those are the questions that this is going to rise, so I think we need to address it from that perspective.
Thank you. Ms. Torres.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Torres. I'm a senior research analyst with Unite Here Local 11. On behalf of the 20,000 members throughout Los Angeles, we wish to express our strong support for Registry, and we thank Councilman Cedillo and this board for your leadership on this issue. As you know, we just recently passed a historic minimum wage raise, but a small raise will be inconsequential if short-term rentals and illegal rents are rising rents for tenants. And just like the discussion around wage theft that we had during the minimum wage discussion, this is not punishing bad landlords, bad employers. This is about creating transparency and an opportunity for tenants to protect themselves and to take action if something is illegal. But on the other hand, if there is no transparency and folks are reacting to high rents, short-term rentals, and low wages, this is unsustainable for our city. We're a city of justice, and we can do much more. And we thank this council for your support.
Thank you. Cheryl Turner, Laura Lamping, and Victor Virek. Please.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Cheryl Turner. I'm a property owner, and I'm here on behalf of other property owners. First, I'd like to point out that there is a distinction between this jurisdiction, the city of Los Angeles, West Hollywood, and Santa Monica. We have rent stabilization. They have strict rent control. So there may be more of a need to have reporting in those other jurisdictions, which differs from ours. I oppose it because it places an additional burden on the landlord to do business here in the city of Los Angeles. After reading the report, I saw 7,920 complaints that were supposedly made, but there's no documentation as to how many of those are actually real complaints of illegal renting by landlords. I'm also concerned about the cost. Other jurisdictions have moved up to $200 per unit, even though they're saying that we're going to start here at a lower figure. All of that will be passed through to the tenants and the landlords. And finally, a major financial invasion of privacy. Think about Patel versus City of Los Angeles, a lawsuit that the city had to defend against and lost, where they invaded privacy rights.
Thank you. We'll look to that. Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura Lamping, property owner. And first of all, this is a tremendous invasion of privacy for the owners and for the tenants. I was working on an apartment today. I asked a next door neighbor tenant, my tenant, am I an okay landlord? Do you have any problems with me? None. Told her what I was going to do, and she goes, you're going to give my name up? Everybody's talked, there's several agencies that have been representing tenants. Everything says this is going for affordable housing. Well, if we're not going to give, the city's not going to give this information out, how can these agencies get the information? I just don't understand. I am definitely in rent control. I have a tenant, let's see, I've had him when I took over the property 20 years ago. His rent was $250 at the time. His rent currently is $500.
Thank you.
It will be a box before we separate.
Victor?
Thank you. Good afternoon. In 1979, due to a supposed concern to keep rents affordable, the LA City Council enacted the RSO. Now, about 36 years later, Los Angeles is one of the 5 large rent-controlled cities with the highest rents in the country. The RSO has continued to make it worse. By making it much more difficult and expensive for apartment owners to preserve their property with needed improvements, the RSO consequence is deterioration and demolition, which reduces the affordable housing supply. Although city officials claim to want to have more affordable housing provided, their proposed registry policy will achieve the opposite. The manner in which monthly rents are currently limited is relatively simplistic and has basically been keeping rents limited as legislated. Registry would display too much distrust of owners by the City Council, and the foregoing problems An impression of distrust can be prevented by rejecting the expensive and more complicated rent registration program.
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you.
I have Betty Bryant, Scott Gray, and Beverly Kenworthy.
Good afternoon. My name is Betty Bryant, and I'm in Council District 10. I am a landlord of one unit, which means I'm using that for my retirement. I do not charge any fees to the tenant, which means you keep adding and adding and adding, then I'm going to start charging the tenants for the fees. I do not do that. And I think it would be an invasion of my privacy. I think, you know, it's all about tenants. We never hear anything about landlords, you know, trying to do something for them. I really think, you know, we should sometime think about raising the 3%. Since you're doing all these charges and charges to landlords, I am not rich. This is my retirement. And I think you should think about people just like me who have one unit, or some have 4 units, but one unit. So think about that, people who are trying to get ahead, and this is just a mom. There is no pop. So think about that.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, hi, Scott Gray, 2980 Beverly Glen Circle. I'm here representing myself. Two different issues. One is a simple amending the rent control ordinance to allow for the registration of the annual rent for each individual unit. That's one issue. The other issue is how does rent control impact affordability and the lack of available housing supply for homeless or whomever. Two separate different issues. One, I'm opposed to expanding the rent control to allow for the annual rent control registration. It's just a cost-benefit analysis. Yes, you'll have all of the available information in the city, but at what cost? And it's a continual annual burden on the city, $2 million this year, $2 million next year, so on and so forth. I have, on the issue of affordability and the impact of rent control, for public record, I've submitted 2 reports that were just issued by the California Legislative Analyst Office, one in February, one in March. These address how rent control is actually negatively impacting affordability, and I have sent copies of these to each of your staff, so you'll have it for your office.
It's a great source, the CLA. Thank you. Beverly.
Good afternoon, council members. Beverly Kenworthy with the California Apartment Association. You know, unfortunately, unlike the seismic retrofit ordinance, this was not rolled out in a manner in which the tenants groups and the landlords were able to come together and talk about. So I think that's been disappointing for us.
Okay.
We believe that data does exist that the city could use. That's very powerful data. There's a company called CoStar. They have data on RSO units that go back for 15 years. They track units based on if they offer Section 8, if they have affordable units. They track vacancy, occupancy rates. It's very powerful. I'm in the process of hooking up some members of the city to have a presentation from them. We also don't think that this ordinance is going to do what it says it's going to do. Well, first of all, it's not going to increase the supply issue. It's not going to stop evictions for conversion to short-term rentals, which we also oppose, and we're working on a different ordinance for that. It's not going to solve these problems. We think the city should be enforcing its own rules now without creating an additional program that we have no faith in if they can enforce it if they can't do what they're supposed to be doing.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Harold Greenberg, Richard Osterstrom, and Michael Millman.
This is the big lineup.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I live in District 8, and I've lived there, and you're aware of that.
I know where you live.
I think this ought to be called, rather than the Rent Registry, it should be called the Lawyers Unemployment Relief Act of 2016. because that's what we're talking about, the invasion of privacy. The biggest slumlord in Los Angeles is the city of Los Angeles. When you go to the bathrooms in the various buildings, when you go into the buildings, particularly look what Parker Center was like. What we're talking about, this group out here, the owners, they're the ones that are providing affordable housing. They're providing housing. Who wants to live in a government project? They don't. What we're talking about today, frankly, is affecting the FBI now and affecting Apple. It's an invasion of privacy. If Apple can tell the FBI we're not turning over these records because of invasion of privacy, we're going to have problems with the tenants. We're going to have problems with other individuals. You're getting into an area that's going to create a problem. We have our members leaving L.A. They don't want to have apartments in L.A. They're selling their properties.
Thank you. Richard?
Hi, I'm Rick Otterstrom. I'm a board member of AGLA, past president of the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. After careful review, AGLA has a serious opposition to this program. We figure it may not be really necessary, and we've heard a lot of testimony here that makes us think that even more so. It raises, of course, the privacy issue, which Harold and others have talked about. In your own statistics, it says that the illegal increases are rare, and the numbers we're looking at are a small percentage of any rent raises. There is available education for tenants and providers. We heard it talked about here, and again, it will increase the rents by a little number, but a lot of little numbers add up. We'd like to see rent banking and a good program. If it has to go through, prefer no program. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. Let me speak truth to power. Anna Ortega is a friend, and she's very smart, and I respect her. We didn't see one single city attorney here saying that he ever prosecuted a rent excess case. In 40 years, on one hand, you can count them. This is a con. You're going to get, as Harold says, plenty of lawsuits. First you register them, then you have Petrus requirements. If the numbers aren't right, the lawyers start suing. You're going to need to have a whole new wing of the offices. Do you honestly think you can stand up this ordinance and defy the Supreme Court of the United States under the Patel case? Those records, respectfully, are protected by the Fourth Amendment. Someday I'll be seeing you here, and we'll be talking about Berkeley expenses of $217. You're being conned. You're being deceived. It's a bad program.
Carlos Aguilar.
Carlos Aguilar, Coalition for Economic Survival. We support the establishment of a rent registry. The registry will provide added tenant protections against illegal rent increases and provide added documentation to assist in enforcement actions related to illegal rent increases complaints. It will also assist in better understanding our true rent housing situation, hopefully enabling more effective action to preserve our rent-controlled affordable housing stock. Data documenting rent levels and increases, turnover rates, and where they're occurring will help in targeting resources, monitoring rent-controlled unit loss, identifying foreclosure rent properties, help enforce and protect tenants living in REIT properties, and support new programs implementations to a no-net loss policy. We support option B because it provides the best bang for the buck and will provide the most detailed and accurate information. As part of this effort, we urge you to instruct staff also include an option to address the inequity of tenants paying 100% of the SCEP fees. Those fees should be split 50-50. Thank you.
Okay. Thank all of you. Is your intention to speak on item number one, sir? What's your name?
Yes, Mark Simon.
Well, did you identify, you said Mark Lippman?
No, Mark Simon.
Mark Simon, I have you here. You,
Yeah, it says number 2 on the sheet. So
right,
number 2
I
for
understand.
rent registry.
So you want number 1?
Yes.
Okay. And then, Gabrielle, I don't have a card for you. I don't doubt that you did. You may want to fill out a card. Did you? Oh, I got it. Here. Yes, I do. You have a different item, but that's fine. You can, if your intention was to speak right now, then please come forward. Mr. Simon, please.
Hi, Mark Simon, Rodney Drive Tenants Association and the LA Tenants Union. I strongly support the rent registry and option A, and I'd like to again thank HSID for the work they've done in creating this. I think I'd like to say, having heard so many speakers today, I think there is a great difference between an invasion of privacy and transparency. And this rent registry is about transparency. There are such things as good landlords, but there are also plenty of bad ones. I've been dealing with a landlord now for the past 4 years. We had to hire a lawyer as soon as he bought the building. He has tried to do so many illegal things. So that happens. And if they just played by the rules, as you said, it seems to me this is a no-brainer, the rent registry, just letting people know. And it's transparency, not an invasion of privacy.
Thank you. Well stated. Please.
Hi,
Gabriela.
I'm Gabriela Litov. I have been a tenant, and I own and manage properties, and I'm a board member at the Apartment Association of Greater LA. And I honor my tenants because they're customers, and I provide the best service possible. And the whole premise of this proposition, and I want you to know this, and I'm talking to the tenants in this room too, is that A, all landlords are crooks, and all tenants are too dumb to go to the rent registration, to the RSO if they have complaints. And some professional rabble-rousers who are getting paid for this are making tenants think that they have no recourse, where the actual fact could not be simpler. We have registration, and now there's a rotten apple in every barrel. There are rotten doctors, and you try to get a malpractice suit. That's a joke. And there are even crooked politicians here and there, not here, of course. So don't buy that your rent is going to go sky high because of your costs of registration.
Thank you.
That's all that's going to happen.
Thank you, Gabriela. Thank you.
Don't buy into this. Don't be snookered.
Okay. So that concludes our public comment. So what is your name? Arnie, I don't have your card. I'm sorry. So I can't call you up if I don't have your card or if you didn't put it in the right item. Right. Special one. We are not on item special one, Arnie. I'm going to call you up, but you seem like a very capable man, and so I encourage you to pay attention. And I understand that I heard you turned in 2 cards, but you turned in this card for special one, and we're on item one.
Right, I turned
not special one.
Correct. I turned
So, please.
Whether as a rental property owner or a tenant, I can understand how a policy which would be so invasive to owners and tenants alike, especially for those that represent themselves to be protectors of tenants, or encourage such a policy that allows for financial and name data collection from a governmental agency. Some in here know that I've been very engaged in some of your communities in various districts, especially in the underserved communities to improve quality of life. And with hundreds of owners being involved in helping with the community safety project partnership, for example, in the housing development succeed. However, as I meet with community members across the city, I am regularly asked about buying rental property, including by young people and first-time home buyers. As I try to be a responsible mentor and provide them good advice, I use my soapbox and when I warn them about the poor investment of owning within the city of Los Angeles. So while like other owners that have been involved, for example, around the CSP, I'm not happy to say, but with hundreds of us, I'm relieved to say that I have been systematically selling off within the city of Los Angeles and will soon be able to say I'm out.
Your comments. Okay, that closes public comment. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everybody who came and gave testimony and made their experience and stories a part of the process. I think it'll help us a lot. I have a few questions for staff based on some of the testimony or some of the questions raised by the testimony. So there were a number of questions about the issue of privacy, and I recognize that you're not you wouldn't necessarily represent the city in this regard, but I am wondering about the legal basis for the Santa Monica and West Hollywood policies that you all cited as examples. That's one question. The second question deals, in other words, I just want to know, have they been sued? Did it stand up, and what was the basis of that standing, just in very broad strokes? The second one is a little bit trickier, and you might not be able to answer it today. So when you increase the reporting requirements, right, even though you divide the cost evenly between tenants and landlords, the administrative burden is all on the landlord. And the administrative burden theoretically costs money because you have to pay someone to do it, right? Or you have to do it. Either way, there's a cost, right? So what have you all thought about or laid out in terms of making this the least invasive and administratively cumbersome process as it can possibly be? In other words, can it just be another blank on the form that people already fill out? I mean, could it be that simple so that you aren't talking about hours and hours of more work? And then I also had a question about I know there were questions about different rents in the same building. Is there a way this policy could be written in a way that allowed the published rent to be the highest legal rent as opposed to the current rent at that particular moment, in the case where somebody gave someone a break for 3 months or whatever? Could there be an allowance so that you could say, well, you know, the rent on this is $550, even though we're letting this person pay $525 for a couple of months?
So the city of Santa Monica and West Hollywood have had registration, I think, from the inception of their ordinances, and they've stood up for over 30 years. So I am unaware of any lawsuits that would preclude the city of Los Angeles from adopting a similar ordinance. With regard to making it simple, that's kind of the intention of option A, which is landlords already register once a year. This would be done in conjunction with the annual registration. Part of the resources that we're asking for is for development of systems to encourage landlords to do this online. Online would be the easiest way for them, and also for the use of our staff resources. So we would definitely be working on building a system that allows them to maybe just upload a form into an Excel file into our system. So we're looking, part of the resources that we're seeking are for systems development to make it fast and simple. I believe you asked about the privacy concerns?
Well, the maximum legal rent versus particular situations that might happen.
I will say that landlords, what we're looking for in option A is the actual rent, and item C would be about the maximum legal rent. Landlords always have the option to give their landlords the legal rent increase and then provide a discount. That is not changing here. I think some of them are unaware of that. So
Say that again.
landlords have the option to
Charge less.
give their tenants a discount on the rent. They just have to, they can charge no more than the maximum amount
So
of rent.
if I understand this correctly, a person can say that the rent is $600, and in this case, I'm giving a $150 a month
Yes.
discount, and I don't have to publish that discount.
You,
It has to be written.
it has to be in writing, and it has to be clear to the tenant what the legal rent is. So I think what the landlord would be reporting is the maximum legal rent that they have informed their tenant is the maximum legal rent.
Right.
So it's about fairness and notification and transparency.
Right, but if they're charging less, they won't get in trouble for not telling people they're charging less.
No, they would not get in trouble for that. And actually, landlords don't have to charge their tenants the same amount. They've got the upper limit, but they can give up to that amount.
Sir?
Yeah, I too just want to thank everyone for their testimony and their perspectives on this issue. It is something we've been going around and around with for a while, and so we appreciate everyone's input. I too was concerned about this privacy issue. We keep hearing it over and over and over and over and over again. Could you kind of identify again what safeguards there are going to be, and if there are any issues about privacy that still may be lingering out there that could be problematic? And then secondly, some discussion, several speakers suggested they were going to be leaving, that they were just, kind of sick and tired of LA. Do we have any figures on estimates of units that could be lost, or some projections about the number of units that are going to be lost if we pursue this program?
In regards to the privacy issues, we're not asking for tenant names. It's mostly the rent amounts per rental unit. So I just wanted to clarify that, so that information would not be disclosed.
And the total will be identified as apartment 2A is
Yes.
at this.
But practically speaking, if I can look up the rent at a certain address, and I fill out a job application saying I live here, that person knows my rent. Is that right?
That's true. However, when we talk about rent amounts and people knowing what the other person's paying, I mean, everybody moves in at different times. So, of course, the rent's going to be different for everyone. And especially if we're only allowing, the RSO only allows rent increases once a year, people move in at different times. So their rent is always increased at different times.
Right. I think the question is just, it is transparency for both the landlord, but it's also transparency for the tenant. We want to just make sure everybody knows that. I mean, we all deal with a level of transparency. You can't move in an apartment without letting the landlord check your credit. So they know if you didn't pay JCPenney in 1985. So I'm not trying to make an argument that it's bad or good. I just want to make sure we're being crystal clear with everyone that what this effectively does is make sure rent public if you're in an RSO building. Is it that's accurate?
Well, they would have to know the exact apartment number and address, and they would be able to look it up, yes. But for any release of aggregate data, they would have to do a Public Records Act request. So you would have to, if anyone that wanted a lot of data would need to go through the Public Records Act request process.
But wait a minute, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I don't want to belabor this, but when earlier in the discussion, you said you can enter an address and it would pull up the rent.
Yes, we would foresee that you would be able to get a rent for an address.
Right. So in so many it's hard to live in this society without giving your address. Like, you got to do it to get a job, to get credit, to get a checking account. So every time you give your address, if you're in one of these units, you would be effectively telling someone your rent.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the purpose of the transparency of this.
But I just want to make sure that's on the record and everybody is clear that that's what's happening.
I'm sorry, Councilman, did you have another question?
Yeah, the question was about the number of units that could be lost or any projections of folks that are going to be saying, forget it, I'm going to.
I'll go back to the 2009 study, which actually found that landlords did well under the Los Angeles rent stabilization system. So while property owners
did well.
economically in terms of their investment and their return on their investment. So I do understand that some landlords feel like they would rather not deal with rent control, and they may sell their buildings, but that's a different thing from losing the rental properties. The rental properties generally remain. They're bought by somebody else. So it's not a loss to the city of rental units. It may be landlords making decisions that they want to sell. And if we're talking about removal from the rental housing business, that's a whole other process and will be a future report on the number of units where that's happening. But it's a small percentage of the city's total rental units, total RSO rental units.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for your feedback. It's been instructive for us. I think the gentleman, please, you're out of order. It's the second time I'm telling you. So let me say that I think the central issue that we heard here was this question of transparency versus privacy. We recognize people have different opinions. They also have options and choices. We are going to ask that the CA in their report back address that question, and if it is an issue, how that issue can be cured. Do we need a waiver? Is there a historical record, legal history on this matter, looking at relevant cities like Santa Monica and West Hollywood? We are going to ask the CAL to work with HCID and the city attorney to provide the necessary fee analysis report to develop a rent registry system and ensure the staff resources necessary to implement this program. We will request the city attorney in conjunction with HCID to draft an ordinance to amend the RSO in accordance with option A as amended with the new fee structure. And then we also ask HCID to report back on its ability to contract with a third party to provide comparable information, give us a cost-benefit analysis to make sure that we have the most efficient systems in place to go forward with this registry. That is the recommendations.
Second the chair's motion.
Second, no objections, so be the order. That takes care of.
Just for clarity, so we're approving the item with those additional.
Yes, 3 recommendations.
Very good. Option A then.
Okay. That concludes item 1. We are going to continue item 2, and then we have a special agenda item. Before? Okay. So before we close, we're going to close item 1, and as I said, we're continuing item 2. So we're going to close that regular session, and we're going to take general public comment, and then move into the special after that. Bill, you're here on general comment. Candace Graham, Kevin Motis, and Rola Masri. Is that you, Mr. Modis? Kevin? Yes. All right, we want to go to public comment. Can we please have everybody's attention? Bill.
Thank you, Councilman Cedillo, members of City Council. My name is Bill Huey. I'm the president of Fair Housing Coalition. We're a civil rights group. Here's what's happening. Since the year 2000, we have lost 200,000 affordable apartments. That's the LA Housing's own records. And the reason is, like myself, I'm collecting $417 for a one-bedroom apartment under rent control. Well, when you have units you're collecting 1/3 or 1/4 of fair market value, you really can't pay the taxes, pay the mortgage, pay the utilities, and properly maintain the property. So what happens, you get inspected, they give you 30 days to do stuff you can't do, they put you in REIT. A lot of landlords citywide have seen their handwriting on the wall, they've sold their properties, the developers come in, they tear it down, they evict the low-income people, and as we're losing affordable units, the homeless population is increasing. City Council a week ago said, how did we get here? How we got here is you knocked the landlords out of business who were providing the affordable housing to the poor people. So the LAHD is the guilty one here for making so many people homeless in LA.
Thank you, Bill. Candace, please.
Hi, thank you for having me. Much appreciated. I concur with Bill Huey. We're fighting, unfortunately, am I talking? Excuse me. I believe that we're going to lose close to 50,000 different housing options here within the next 2 years because of the steps that we've been taking. And that is very concerning to me. I work with Skid Row. I work across the country from CD15. As you know, I ran for city council. But my whole problem is civil rights here. If we choose to ignore this, then we're going to continue going downhill. That's why I'm here.
Thank you. Kevin.
My name is Kevin Modis. I'm with the California Brain Tumor Association. And we're coming to the Housing Committee because we're very concerned about the plan.
Give him the mic. Thank you.
About the plan to put citywide Wi-Fi citywide, exposing people to an increasing amount of radio frequency radiation. This city is pretending that there's no health effects. Meanwhile, Berkeley City passed an ordinance saying that we shouldn't hold wireless devices against our body, acknowledging the cancerous and neurological health effects. I'm putting into the record, this is an article from the Wall Street Journal, acknowledging 30 cases of people suing over cell phones causing brain tumors, and the industry admitting in their SEC filings that they will be paying significant damages and settlements. So the industry itself knows their technology is dangerous, and this city continues to ignore it, and we'd like to meet with you and share the science with you so you can protect our residents from increasing exposure.
Hi, my name is Rola Masri, and I'm also speaking about wireless technology being put so close to homes with a citywide Wi-Fi. There's a lot of things going on in Europe and other countries that are limiting the amounts of radiation that people are getting exposed to. Meanwhile, here in the city of Los Angeles, we're passing all types of programs that will increase our exposure to wireless radiation, like citywide Wi-Fi. In Sweden, they recognize a disability called electrosensitivity, where people get very sick when they're exposed to wireless radiation. Scientists and doctors from all over the world band together, 200 of them, to plead with the UN to take a look at our RF standards that the FCC hasn't looked at for 30 years. I personally have experienced this, the health effects of wireless radiation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our regular agenda. For today, we're going to do special agenda 1 in 1 minute. Yeah. We're adjourning the regular session, and then we will go into the special in 1 minute. That was public comment for the first agenda. I'm sorry we didn't get that card.
gave him what I gave him. Sorry.
You want to give this to the committee?
Yeah, part of public record.
Okay. You could just hand it to the clerk.
Oh, sorry.
Who's been continued?
Good. I've got a Ron Miller.
Take out.
The next one.
Okay. All right, we're going to do special one. We're going to do special one now.
Okay, item number 1 is in Housing Department report relative to the development of an enhanced repair program to strengthen the systematic code enforcement program.
Okay, let's go. Housing. Let's talk about how we're going to increase and enhance the repairs, make sure that they're substantive and of quality, that they don't waste neither tenants nor landlords' time, and that we ensure that everybody lives in the quality of tenancy that the landlords had intended and that the tenants deserve.
Thank you. Daniel Gomez, Housing and Community Investment Department. What you have before you is a staff report that recommends 4 items. The first item is recommending a 6-month pilot program where a housing inspector will respond to a complaint and see the apartment firsthand without first notifying the owner. And the second is regarding a 6-month pilot program in the Promise Zone where the department will identify problem properties and cause a conference with the owner of the property before they embark upon a repair.
The department will do the inspections in prospectively, or you rely on complaints again?
With regard to the second one, it would simply be advisory. Let me say this. The conference is voluntary. It's not mandatory. We cannot compel a person to attend a conference. It is something that the department's predecessor, the Department of Building and Safety, had done under the cover of a building permit. But the Housing Department does not operate with the benefit of a building permit. So what we're proposing is a pilot where we experiment with having a staff conference before someone embarks upon a repair. But we'll identify those properties at risk of doing a faulty repair first. It would be strictly voluntary. The next item, recommendation here, is that we believe that it's necessary to amend the municipal code to include lead-safe work practices. This has been law since 1992. Subsequent to 1992, the Environmental Protection Agency drafted federal regulations. And then, as an example of what other charter cities have done, the city of San Francisco adopted in 1999 lead-safe work practices. The city of Los Angeles has not. And the department believes that this relates to quality repairs. The next item is that the department's looked at the state contractor's license law. And although the law recommends and advises contractors that they should be aware of EPA lead-safe work practices, the contractors do not take an exam on it. And the department recommends that the city of Los Angeles, look at the possibility of initiating a legislative amendment to the contractor's license law. Now, we've discussed these matters with our landlord-tenant work group. I was hoping that we had come to consensus, but since writing this report, there have been different opinions expressed. And that, I believe, will be the topic of the day. I'm available for questions.
Colleagues? Nope. Okay, let's go to public comment. Patricia McAllister, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all,
I was in city chambers last week when some illegal aliens came in complaining about their landlord not fixing up the place and not repairing. The landlord came in with a stack this high of what he has done, and the fact that those tenants were making too much money to even be paying 50% of their rent. They were illegal, and they were subletting their apartments out to drug dealers. They rang the bell and cut him off, and he went and turned in all his documents to the city. I'm with these landlords. The first thing we need to do is find out, do we have citizens? If they're not citizens of this nation, they have no business in this affordable housing. You go and look at all these homeless tents. I see people, I ride around there, they're black and white that are homeless. You won't find a Mexican on the street. Why? Because if they don't have their own unit, they're in with a family of about 35 and 40, and this council is trying to find a way to get them to be able to have those units with 50 illegals in it.
What do you want to do? Yeah. Okay, we've got Beverly Kenworthy, Harold Greenberg, and Richard Osterstrom.
Good afternoon, Beverly Kenworthy, California Apartment Association. We agree with the intent of this proposal. We think it goes just a little bit too far between 15 days notice and no notice. We think there should be a compromise somewhere in there. I think an owner has a right to know that if somebody from the city is coming to their property, we understand that you want to look at the repairs before they get done, but we would just like a short notice so that they are aware, but that the city can try and address these chronic issues, with full transparency. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Go.
Thank you. Harold Greenberg. I have property in the 1st, 9th, and 8th districts. And what I have found, frankly, is we have to be in compliance with what the law is and, frankly, what the health and safety is for our tenants. This proposal flies in the face of that. In other words, if you're going to have a situation where the owner doesn't know there's going to be an inspection, I have had situations and clients that I represent where white mice are found in the property. That's laboratory mice. It's a plant. We've seen situations with roaches that have been planted, bed bugs, etc. The owner of that property should have the right to be present because he could tell the inspector, and I've had that with the health department, where the client tells and shows that he's done the work, and within a short period of time, particularly when the property is in REAP, that the tenants have destroyed that property. What we're looking for is fairness. This should not be just us. That's not justice.
Got it. Richard.
Hi, Rick Otterstrom, AGLA again. We understand the need to prevent Mickey Mouse repairs, things that really don't do the job. But we have a strong objection to eliminating the courtesy notice. What we want to do is create better tenants and better landlords, and to do that, the housing department and the SCEP inspectors and all of that should be educating the owners and the tenants on how to have a better building rather than punishing the owners with a surprise inspection. We would like to see LA City work with AGLA to create more better landlords and properties instead of trying to put small businesses out of business. Thank you.
Thank you. Yolanda Gonzalez. Okay. Please.
Yes, Yolanda Gonzalez. About 10 years ago, we had serious problems, especially in Boyle Heights, where people were trying to come in and inspect the property. And we had a pedophile that walked into my property, and we have children on the property. So think about the children first, especially their families. On the lead-based issue, Boyle Heights, I'm part of the lawsuit against Exide because we have over 10,000 properties in Boyle Heights that have been contaminated. And you know that, Mr. Cedillo. We need to find a relief for these landlords and also for these properties because I am just less than a half a mile away where we have found friends of mine which their properties have been contaminated. And they're going around testing to see how much lead base they have on their properties. Another thing too is that we have a very serious problem of people not understanding. We have good tenants. I'm a landlord that goes around defending people and the tenants in order to have good housing. We defended the handiwork program. We go around telling people we've been around for 25 years, so there are good of us that do a good job. But please relieve us from, right now, Boyle Heights, the southeastern area, from all these inspections, because I just got the notice from Sacramento that at least we're getting $1,073,000 to start just cleaning up some of these properties.
Yes. Linda Kite, Adrian Ocampo, and Arnie Carlin. Did Arnie leave?
Hi, I'm Linda Kite with the Healthy Homes Collaborative, and I wholeheartedly support this program. I think one of the issues with the No 15 notice is to try and deal with some of the patch and paint kind of thing. Unfortunately, the inspectors are not going to go into the wall and probe and see whether or not the underlying problems have been resolved. So that was the issue. And I think the idea to keep all of us, together on this is that it's a pilot. We're going to try it out and see how it works. On lead poisoning prevention, I've been working on this issue since 1992, and I can assure you that LA is number 3 in the country in terms of at risk for lead poisoning. So it's really important that we pay attention and that we do things correctly before we hurt children. We've all heard of what happened in Flint. We've seen what's going on with Exide. Brain damage is irreversible, and so this is actually really important stuff to get going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Señor.
Buenas tardes, soy Adriano Campo. Yo he vivido más de 10 años al sur centro de Los Ángeles.
Good afternoon, I'm Adrian Ocampo. I have lived in South Central LA for more than 10 years.
Estos últimos 4 años he tenido muchos problemas con el nuevo dueño que entró.
These past 4 years, I have had a lot of problems with the new lawn owner that has just started.
Ya que cuando él entró hizo unas reparaciones que me perjudicaron ciertos lugares.
When he started, he did some repairs that damaged some areas.
Donde se me estaban fundiendo mucho los focos, la luz.
There were a lot of problems with the light bulbs.
6 veces fue el inspector.
The inspector was there 6 times.
Y el señor no arreglaba.
And the gentleman did not fix that.
Pasó más de un año
After a year,
que el señor no arreglaba.
this man did not fix that.
Ciertos lugares que le indicaron que me arreglara hasta la fecha no ha arreglado.
Certain places that he was supposed to fix, up to today, he has not fixed anything.
Inspectores, supervisores, investigadores le indicaron qué es lo que tiene que hacer y el señor no ha cumplido.
Inspectors, supervisors, and other people have indicated to him what he has to do, and he has not complied with that up to today.
Tengo evidencias, pruebas.
I have evidence,
He hablado con la ciudad que necesito unas respuestas.
I have talked to the city because I need some answers.
Lo único que me dice que el caso está cerrado.
The only thing they tell me is that the case is closed.
Me gustaría que voy a proseguir.
Gracias.
Para saber.
And I would like to.
Y apoyo a registración de viviendas y
support the registry
reparaciones de calidad.
Gracias, señor. Arnie Carlin, Mark Lipman, and Salvador Milano.
Hello, good afternoon. Mark Lipman again with the Westside Tenants Union. First, I'd like to say, yes, I support this registry and also think it should be extended for 1 year citywide. We all have the right to live in places that are clean and safe and up to code. That's just a right that we should all have. I think it's our responsibility to make sure that happens. Inspections are necessary. There are widespread abuses of just not doing the proper repairs. We need to address that. This is not to be something that should be divisive or against landlords. I personally support helping landlords that are trying to maintain low rents in RSU units and landlords who are struggling. Perhaps we could also consider maybe some type of public subsidy to encourage these landlords to do the proper repairs, so it's not all out of their pockets, of course, and that we can have proper repairs to where the places that need it the most in our low-income communities. Thank you very much.
Salvador Milano, Gabriela Garcia, and Ophelia Platten. Okay. Ophelia Platten, Platón. ¿Cómo se llama?
Ofelia Platón.
Ok. Bienvenida.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Yo soy inquilina y vivo en Boyle Heights.
I'm a tenant and I live in Boyle Heights.
Y yo he estado hablando con vecinos y muchos se están quejando de las rentas muy altas.
I have talked to neighbors and a lot of them have complained about the increase of rent.
Sí, y también tienen cucarachas, tienen ratones.
They have roaches, mice.
Cuando van los inspectores, los dueños no tienen, más bien no hacen arreglos de buena calidad.
When the inspectors go there, the owners, they do not do a repair on good quality.
Lo único que van y hacen es el Mickey Mouse.
The only
Y lo
thing
que
they do is the Mickey
queremos
Mouse work.
nosotros como inquilinos es que tengan que hagan reparaciones para que yo pienso que para que tanto como dueño como inquilino vivamos a gusto.
And the only thing that we want is, as a tenant, we want the owners to do the repairs in good quality, and so the tenants as well as the owners can live in peace together.
Exacto, y pues lo único que queremos nosotros como inquilinos,
As tenants, the only thing we
pues
want
que haya vivienda de calidad,
that there is a quality
saludable
of
y en buenas
housing,
condiciones.
healthy and in good conditions.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias. Elizabeth Blani, Dora Rosales, and Enrique Velasquez.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Blaney. I'm here on behalf of the Renters de LA Coalition as well as Unión de Vecinos. I work and live in Boyle Heights. And we do support the idea of removing the notification to landlords so that the inspectors truly get to see what the problem is, the repair problem is, which they don't have that opportunity to do now. It will, in the long term, prevent the deterioration of properties. And we also support the repair plan so that landlords do get the opportunity to have a review of what those repairs are going to be. Two concerns we do have that we have expressed with HCID in our conversations with them. One has to do with the geographic area. With respect to the repair plan, we feel that it is a little narrow just to have Hollywood be the area of the test, that it should be expanded to several other districts to really have an impact, as well as because there are organizations working in those areas that can support and work with HCID. And then also the time period. 6 months is too short of a pilot program. It really should be for a minimum of a year to make sure it's an impact and test it thoroughly. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Enrique Velasquez with Inquilinos Unidos and also with Renters de LA. And I'm here to support the idea, in support of the proposal before you, and also the removal of the 15-day notice to the landlords, mainly because of what historically has happened, that when landlords are notified, they hide the problems. I'm not saying that it's all the landlords, but there is bad landlords out there. I can tell you, I did housing work helping low-income residents in South LA, Pico Union, in many areas of LA many years ago. And I recently came back to do housing work, and it's something I tell people is like I never left. The same situation still remains. And I think that, yes, it is a pilot problem.
adjustments can be made, but I think that this will give us a better idea how to deal with the problem. Thank you so much.
Dora Rosales, Du Kang, and Wesley Walker Jr. Dora Rosales? Nope. Sir.
Hi, I'm Du Kang with Kiwa, Koreatown Immigrant Workers Alliance. Our service is not limited to Koreatown, but many of our members and supporters are either working or living in Koreatown area, which is mostly CD10. The repair issue is not just work. A lot of our members and supporters are working hard. Not just one job, two jobs, and supporting family is very difficult. But when the repair is not done properly in their residence, it actually causes the health problem. And in order to make the LA great again, and it is very important to provide a healthier home, and repair is a crucial element to that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
My name is Wesley Walker, and I'm an organizer with LA CAN and LA Human Rights Coalition. I'm here today in support of your proposal. I think it's very important that that landlords understand that I'm a low-income person. I'm a vet, and we don't get a cost of living raise every year. As a matter of fact, we get another cost of living wage maybe 2 years from now. But what I'm saying is that it's very important that people get more bang for the buck. Okay, if you going to do repairs in my apartment, just like I pay the rent, and if I don't pay the rent, I expect to be evicted from there. I think it's very important that landlords understand that if we pay them the rent, they should also do the repairs as necessary, because it's a life or death situation sometimes.
Got it.
Right.
Ariana Alcaraz, Candace Graham, and Bill Preslucky. Candace? Who's gone? Ariana. Okay, thank you. Candace, and give us a second. Bill, is he still with us? Okay, Candace.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. Thank you
Please
so
join
much
us.
for allowing me to be here. Unfortunately, the years gone by, I've seen a lot of people from the departments come up in front of city councilmen and just blatantly lie to you. There's a black and white issue of what really happens on the streets and what's fed in front of you, because they have to tell you what you want to hear. 30 to 15 days notification is essential in privacy, not only for the property to be able to run efficiently, but also for the landlord. And this gives them, and it saves the city money in the long run of not having to Mickey Mouse and go back and forth. Now, the reason that notification is given is to avoid lawsuits. I've had like 2 girls. I've had a city LAHD inspector go inside of a home, and the property owner wasn't told, and they were in dire, or the city of Los Angeles almost got sued for the guys raping 2 tenants. That was without accessibility, without somebody knowing, and there's, the legal
right.
limitations that we have to deal with.
Okay.
But thank you so much,
Thank you.
sir.
Bill, and then Steve Luffman.
Bill Przlecki, Executive Director of Power. Again, yes, we support a quality repairs ordinance that will ensure that folks have a habitable, quality place to live, that we will also strive to maintain as affordable, and that this will be a key puzzle piece in a larger strategy of actually bringing some housing stability to our city, some desperately needed housing stability to our city. I think we just want to reiterate that this is one of those issues that can and should be kind of a no-brainer, that if what we're asking people to do is actually give people decent places to live, then it should be fairly easy to move forward with this, and we look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Luftman again. I'm a renter, and I support this proposal. It is reasonable, and it will help to assure safe, habitable homes. It does not penalize good owners. In fact, it benefits responsible landlords by making sure all apartment buildings are safe and well cared for.
Thank you. I have Thelmy Perez and Carlos Aguilar. That will close public comment.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Thelmy Perez. I'm with the LA Human Right to Housing Collective and the Renters Day LA Alliance. I've also been a tenant organizer for over 10 years. I'm also a tenant, and I've worked mostly in CDs 9, 1, and 14. I agree with Enrique, my colleague, who mentioned that over the last 10 years, I've noticed that problems, particularly in low-income communities of color, do not get better, they get worse. I've seen tenants suffering for years with the same issues, calling the inspectors, only for the inspector to come out and notice that there's no violation that's visible because there was paint slapped on mold or there was drywall replaced over a ceiling instead of repairs being made to the plumbing. So this has been a priority item for our members across the city for that length of time, and it's a pilot program that intends to identify where weaknesses are in the repairs program that exists and to improve public health. So removing the 14-day notice is a key component of this. I hope that you leave that intact during the pilot time, and we urge you to vote yes with the following amendments. 1, to extend the pilot program to 1 year so we can have better data and make better decision over whether or not to keep this program going, and 2, to increase the geographical areas. Thank you.
Carlos Aguilar, Coalition for Economic Survival. We support the strengthening of the systematic code enforcement program. As part of CES's work outreaching, educating, empowering, and assisting tenants, we have identified areas where the good work of SCEP and code program could be improved. While most landlords comply and make needed repairs upon being cited, there are some who don't. In anticipation of inspections, we often see some landlords do cosmetic touch-ups to disguise the magnitude of the problem. Thus, when inspectors visit the property, they are unable to identify code issues because they are not visible. As a result, conditions are not improved and tenants end up frustrated, losing faith in the process that is supposed to ensure their legal rights to a habitable unit. This proposal is a good first step in addressing these concerns and making SCEP a more effective tool combating slum housing conditions and in providing safe, healthy, habitable housing for LA renters. We urge adoption of these recommendations. Thank you.
Yes, you do. You do. Please come up.
Cheryl Turner again, and I'd like to compliment the council and the HCID on this pilot program. I'm glad to see that you are working creatively to come up with different options whereby there's outreach to landlords, working with them, educating them, and trying to assess whether they're really the good guys or whether there's a problem. The only thing is the 15-day notice. We think that's very important because with the 15 days notice, it's actually a total of 45 days, 15 plus 30, that the landlord has to make the repairs. But with this new system, it reduces it down to 30, which gives the landlord less time. Also, keeping in mind, it's important that the landlord have an opportunity to be present when the inspector is there. It's their property. They should be there. And also, they are potentially facing future prosecution if, in fact, there is a violation that goes so far. So to not have them there to be notified potentially violates their due process rights.
Gentlemen?
Just a question, if you can come back up to the table. I certainly understand the desire to identify problems that are just sort of covered over. You know, you put the drywall up, or you do the painting to cover the mold, that kind of stuff. But isn't there some value, though, of having the owner there at the time, or what's how do you kind of reconcile that? I mean, it's
well. Let's clarify the issue here.
Yeah.
What we're speaking about with respect to not giving notice is a complaint response, and that's a service to the tenants, where they complain about an issue in their apartment, and we respond to that. We're proposing to respond to that by responding first to the tenant, and then
what the problem is,
and then informing
or to confirm if there's a problem.
Pardon me?
To confirm whether or not there is a problem.
Yeah, to confirm the problem, and to confirm whether or not the problem is a code violation that merits enforcement. So we're not going to write orders against problems where, for example, if a motorcycle is parked in a living room, we're not going to write you need new carpeting in the living room because of that type of abuse. Or if you have teenage children that have handprints all over the walls, or young children. So inspectors have the ability to sort this out. What we found when we responded to this this motion, the Renter's Day motion, is we went to a property in response to the Renter's Day's request to see a problem property. And what we found when we went there unannounced was that the building had severe roof leaks surrounding the skylights, the laundry room, which was on the penthouse level of a 4-story building. And then when the inspector announced the inspection to come back, everything was painted. So it was just as we saw, and just as we're citing in the staff report. So what we find is that, and we believe the pilot program will bear this out, is that when you give an owner, this isn't really a notice issue, this is about the compliance period. When you give an owner a compressed period of time to fix a complaint, 15 days, that puts them in the crisis mode, potentially. So what we're proposing, along with seeing this first, is giving them 30 days to fix a problem. So the department does not view this as a notice issue. In fact, it's the way the City of Los Angeles had historically responded to complaints, as well as other jurisdictions. It's a tenant service, a complainant service.
And explain the SCEP Central and East regions. What council districts are those exactly?
The Central region encompasses Council District 4, 5, 8, 9, and 10. The East region encompasses Council District 1, 8, 9, 13, and 14. It has a good sampling of buildings that typically may have problems.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move this. What I see this as is a question of this is not an assault on landlords or building owners, but that this is an effort to cure a problem related to fraud. In other words, you've brought to us a problem in which people do what they call Mickey Mouse repairs or engage in activity that don't really address the core problems in a building, a leak, for example, or mold, and that they try to cover it up. That's, in some respects, fraud. It's a misrepresentation of what the problem is. And so this is only focused on those who engage in that activity. You're going out to first confirm the problem, and then you give notice to the landlord and give them the opportunity to comply subsequent to the notice.
Correct. And just as in the current process, we would not charge them if they fixed it within the 30 days. The actual 15-day period, this giving a courtesy notice, was an agreement that the department came to with the apartment owners based upon the allegations that tenants don't complain to them about issues.
Okay. All right, so this is a...
I'm sorry.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just want to be clear. So when you make the inspection, the tenant is there?
Yes.
They have property rights.
So...
Actually, may I clarify? Yeah. In the pilot, we respond to the tenant.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, when the current process is we arrange an appointment to see what the owner has done within the 15 days. So the owner is there and the tenant may or may not be there in the current process.
So I guess I'm just curious about why you wouldn't, just even if it's 72 hours, say we're going to see this tenant about this particular issue, so that everybody's there together?
That's a possibility within a pilot program. We intend to experiment with different things. In fact, in our
So
last...
This gives you the latitude to do that?
Yes. We made a commitment to the two associations that are represented here today that we would develop some ground rules for the pilot program. That might be an experiment that we do, is meet them jointly. We want to head off a repair before it started so we can see what is going on.
Got it. Okay, so we're going to go forward. It's as imperfect as it may be, it is a pilot for that purpose. It's for us to move forward. You gave us a great example at the beginning. It's important for us to notice the focus, both the focus and the limited time. It's a pilot for 12 months, and the focus in a smaller geographic area. And at the end of the day, it's a focus on those who engage in misrepresentation or fraud. And so,
Yes, but you're suggesting this be 12 months?
Correct.
In lieu of this?
Yes.
The department can...
Yes, I think the point's well taken that we need more information, more data. We get started, we got a smaller sample, it may not be sufficient. So we're going to do, the recommendation is we approve the HCID report with a pilot of 12 months. So be the order? No objection?
There it is.
Thank you.
Good. That concludes our afternoon. Thank each and every one of you for being here and continuing to make progress in better landlord-tenant relations in the city of Los Angeles.